the fact that in my childhood we were discussing about art a lot, and we went to museums instead of going to the beach, which was a pity back then, but at least it gave me a quite intense insight into visual art and paintings and reflection on art also.
Okay, but you still long for sandcastles on the beach sometimes.
Yes, I did it later.
One of the things that always impresses me with your movie making is your comfort with ambivalence and ambiguity. And those seem to be qualities that quite a lot of people are getting increasingly afraid of, quite a lot of audiences. Have you noticed a change in how they are received and how those films are received?
My impression is actually the opposite. When I started to be a filmmaker, I had the feeling that it was even a stronger narrative that films have to sort of involve the audience and kidnap the audience into a world of emotion and relief. And my films never did that. My films are always told from a slightly distanced perspective. And I have the feeling that nowadays this is actually more appreciated, maybe because more and more people understand that media is very unreliable also. We learned that we cannot believe everything that we see on a screen. And my films always sort of had that notion of don't believe everything you see.
Actually, well, speaking of your visual style, which is very distinctive, I know a lot of that must come about in collaboration with your regular collaborators, such as cinematographer Martin Geschlacht, who I think is also your partner in your production company. Is that correct?
Yeah. Martin Geschlacht is the DOP on all my films, actually. We discuss about the storyboard very much. So when we prepare a film, I draw a storyboard. That's a very important step in my filmmaking, and Martin and me, we then discuss the storyboard and try to develop a certain film language for each project.
And I think another key collaborator then is your sister.
Yes.
And she sort of moves between like production design and costume design and basically sort of the look of the mise en scène.
She is the costume designer. Tanja Hausner is the costume designer. And she is the first person that I talk to when the script is finished, because with her together we create the visuals, the color palette, if you want. And then the production designer comes in. So that's why I mostly say that Tanja is the strongest influence on the visuals in my film.
It's an interesting way around to work, actually, to sort of start with the costumes and to work out from there. And I think there's also kind of there's a really interesting stylization that you use in the costumes, often uniforms or lab coats or school uniforms in Club Zero. Do you find that like there is something about one key costume, one key image that then kind of unlocks the rest of the aesthetic of a film for you?
I would say yes. We start from the lead character, which is always a woman in my films, and we try to find out what is her style. So it's not only about colors, it's also about the personality we want to portray. Does she wear suits or does she wear skirts? Does she have short hair or long hair? So we try to define the visual appearance of that main character. And through that, we also discover the colors. And from that starting point, we then go to the other characters, and then the set design comes in. And you mentioned the uniforms. So the uniforms are very often also a starting point to create the color of the lab coats, for example. They have that weird mint green. And then that was the starting point, the mint green relating to the red of the flower in Little Joe. Yeah.
And that strange acid yellow that the Club Zero uniforms are, it really seems there's something slightly bilious about it. It makes you slightly ill, which is in keeping, I guess, with the themes of the film.
Yes, I think so too. And the uniforms also are part of my films because I always try to portray a society, an institution. All my films take place in a certain institution, be it school or the lab, the company of the scientific plant breeding, or the church. So I always portray the society in a small version of an institution. And an institution often characterizes the people through uniforms. The uniform says who you are in society.
Often in your films, I get the sense that underneath a very controlled, placid surface, and that's often the very controlled, placid surface of your lead actress, there are very strange energies going on and invisible energies. Just tell me a little bit about trying to get to use, you know, a visual medium to get to this invisibility, to get to explain what cannot be seen.
I think it has got to do with the fact that I always start from a certain idea when I start to think about a new film, and the idea mostly contains an abstract element. So, for example, with Lourdes, the idea was very much about faith, and in Amour Fou it was about love. So I sometimes I start from an idea which is not visible. There is no way to show love or faith. It's in our heads, it's in our hearts. So how do you make a film about something that is not visible? And through the film language that I create, I try to talk about those invisible, very strong ideas that move us in our lives.